There is a genuine fear that the newly announced one-in, one-out migrant returns deal between the UK and France is on the verge of unravelling before it's even begun. And this plan, launched with fanfares by the Prime Minister, by Sir Keir Starmer, and by the French President Emmanuel Macron, has been billed as groundbreaking attempt to reduce the boat crossings over the English Channel. Yet beneath the headline lies a fragile agreement threatened by legal challenges, practical limitations, and political recriminations. The context. Since Brexit, the UK lost access to the Dublin regulation, which allowed it to return asylum seekers to the first EU country that they enter. But more importantly, the Dublin regulation gave us access in Britain to the documentation that followed migrants across the continent. Crossings surged from under 2,000 in 2019 to over 45,000 by 2022. And this year is on track to break all records, with over 21,000 arriving in just 6 months. And this is to say nothing about the number of migrants who come here on the back of lorries. President Macron pointedly blamed Brexit for these numbers, saying the British people had been sold a lie, that leaving the EU would make controlling immigration easier. He argued Brexit had removed legal tools and created an incentive to cross the channel, and I think he's absolutely right. Against this backdrop, Starmer's government has put forward this new deal with an aim to return migrants arriving on small boats to France, while accepting a smaller number with legitimate claims from the French territory. And the pilot phase expects to remove around 50 migrants per week. That's significantly more than was sent to Rwanda under Priti Patel and Suella Braverman's ridiculous Rwanda scheme. And under this new scheme, migrants arriving illegally from France will have their claims ruled inadmissible and be detained. They will be returned to France as soon as possible. And in exchange, the UK will accept an equivalent number of asylum seekers already in France who qualify under agreed criteria. And the government insists this will have a deterrent effect, undermining smuggling networks by demonstrating that crossings will not lead to resettlement in Britain. However, the deal faces immediate and serious doubts. Firstly, the numbers are minuscule. 50 returns a week amounts to just 2,600 a year. As I say, significantly more than the Rwanda scheme achieved, but less than 6% of current arrivals, and critics, including the Conservative opposition, have dismissed this as a gimmick that will leave 94% of arrivals untouched. Secondly, the EU has not formally ratified the deal, and Macron himself conceded that the Brussels legal aid and political sign-off is still pending, and without EU support, France may struggle to justify taking back any migrants at all who crossed from its shores. Thirdly, legal challenges loom for each case. Home Office officials expect appeals on human rights grounds, with lawyers citing Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights protecting family life, and Article 3 guarding against inhumane treatment. And Britain has a record of deportations halted in precisely these circumstances. Moreover, the plan requires expanded detention facilities in the UK, and capacity and in the current facilities is around 2,200, so absurdly small, with only modest plans for expansion, including creating a logistical bottleneck. French enforcement is another weak point. Only last week, hundreds of migrants left the beach in France, with French police standing by, and a nearby search and rescue vessel simply followed the boat to ensure it didn't capsize. Macron says French police are trialling tactics such as puncturing dinghies in shallow water or deploying nets to disable propellers, but these remain limited and controversial. Shallow water is still dangerous. A planned maritime protocol to intercept small boats at sea has not been finalised, and until these rules are agreed and enforced, crossings will continue virtually unchecked. The political theatre surrounding this is equally volatile. Macron used the joint press conference to deliver a rebuke of Brexit, blaming it for the crisis and calling for a European approach instead of populist solutions. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage, who felt that he was snubbed without getting an invitation to meet President Macron, labelled the agreement a humiliation for Brexit Britain, arguing it amounts to surrendering sovereignty to an arrogant French president. Well, there we are. I'm sure they would have had a very jolly time together. He spent the day in the Channel taking pictures of crossings, a PR stunt that Sir Keir Starmer publicly mocked. Conservative critics claim Labour's plan is weak, uncosted, and reminiscent of failed promises around the Rwanda scheme, which was scrapped after legal challenges. But of course, the Rwanda scheme got absolutely nowhere. This scheme may get modestly somewhere. They argue only their deportations bill would enable mass removals. That's deportations to Rwanda. The deal, as it stands, rests on precarious foundations, unfixed numbers with no guarantee they will rise. Legal challenge is almost certain, the need for EU blessing, limited detention capacity, and patchy French enforcement. It is, in short, a fragile diplomatic experiment conducted in full view of a sceptical public and a combative political opposition. If it fails to deliver rapid and visible results, it risks not only falling apart but also deepening the sense of political betrayal that fueled Brexit in the first place. It is therefore not hyperbole to say that the fear that this deal will unravel is not only real, but well-founded.